Hi, how's it going? I hope you're doing swell. Today's video is about how to actually make time lapses at 3 different skill levels: beginner, intermediate, and advanced. This is the way that I've been doing it in the past couple of videos. You may have noticed, for the 10% of you that have stuck around to the end of the video, the end cards, you have probably seen a couple of time lapses. And also last week was a hyperlapse, my first one. Turned out kind of shitty, but we all learn. Besides from that, this video is about time lapses, and let's just get right into it. For this video, I'm using my A6400 with the kit 16 to 50mm lens, without a tripod. I set it on top of a candle. Time-lapse skill level number 1, beginner. This is for those of you who just have a camera and a very basic knowledge of how to use it. You can hit record and hit stop, and that's all you need to do. Hit record, leave the camera for about 20 minutes, come back and stop it. Simple. So on to the editing of the beginner level time lapse. So here we are at the desk setup. We are about to get into the editorial side of the video. Right off the bat, the beginner one, very simple. Jump into Premiere, there you go, open a new project. I'm going to write this one as time lapse, and I want to select my folder. You don't need to mess around with any of these settings, they're all fine. Open up the program, and the first thing you need to do is import media. There you go, now you have your footage in Premiere. Just gonna drag that in. There we go, there's my footage, it's a video. So what you're gonna wanna do once it's in the timeline is right click, select speed and duration, and here comes a dialog box with a couple little just choices you can make. You can toggle the speed directly in percentages. You could mess with the duration, which will affect the speed. You can click reverse speed to reverse the clip, or you can do this, but don't worry about anything else. So what I'm gonna do, because I want it to be 8 times faster, because I want a 4-second time lapse, I'm just gonna click here, take out the 33, put in 04, and take out the 15, because that's 15 frames. And there you go, it automatically updates to around 8 times the speed, or 840%. Hit OK, that's your time lapse done. You click it, there you go. Okay, now on to the intermediate level. This is where it gets a little bit trickier and you have to know a little something about cameras. This is the S&Q time lapse. This is a simple little trick that is very useful sometimes to just get a quick and easy time lapse. So what you want to do is, if your camera has an S&Q function on the little function wheel, go over to it, go into the settings, then click S&Q settings. And for frames per second, you want to click 1. And that is going to take a frame every second, a singular frame. For those of you who are at this level doing these types of time lapses, you probably will already know that generally you can have around 25 and up frames per second for video. So 1 frames per second for 25 seconds is 1 second of a time lapse. It's very simple maths. If you want to be more advanced with it, you can go into your actual S&Q mode and change it to manual. That's what I did for this, just to keep the time lapses as similar as possible. I used a manual f-stop and shutter speed, but you don't have to. So, on to the editing of the intermediate level time lapse. For the intermediate level, it is very similar to the first, but it is surprisingly easier. All you have to do is import your footage. So I'm going into day, time-lapse 2, S&Q. You simply click and drag your clip onto the timeline and hit play. There you go. It's a time lapse. And finally, for you hardcore motherfuckers who probably don't even need this video already, the advanced time lapse. Oh yeah, it is as cool as it sounds. One note, before you try this one, you need to have a little bit of patience. In contrary to the other time lapses, these time lapses could take anywhere between 5 minutes and over a day. That's how long these types of time lapses can be. It is crazy awesome. So let's get into it. Most cameras nowadays have an inbuilt intervalometer. This is a function or a system which basically tells your camera, take a photo every 5, 10, 15, 3 seconds. So you simply have to input how many photos you want and how long in between each photo. That's it. Intervalometer seems scary because there can be a little bit of maths with it, but the simple general rule of thumb is if you want a 4-second time lapse, it's 100 photos. If you want an 8-second time lapse, it's 200 photos. You just multiply whatever length of time you want the video to be by 25, and that is how many photos you need. Recently, I tried to do 40-second time lapses. These time lapses took a long time to make, and they were 1,000 photos that were taken over, I think, an hour and a half. Yeah, it took a long time. Even though I used the same setup throughout this entire video for these three different levels, I do suggest for the intervalometer, the advanced time lapse, to use a tripod. I know equipment doesn't really matter, but for intervalometer ones, because they tend to go on for much, much longer, it will save you so much time in post stabilizing your image. Trust me, tripods are cheap. Buy a cheap one and set it on it. Simple. Now on to the advanced level editing. So I'm in here, rather than open Premiere, open up Lightroom or Photoshop. It's probably way more annoying in Photoshop, but Lightroom I found just works way easier. So what you want to do is highlight all and drag it into the program. It'll take a couple of seconds, and all you have to do is select import. So once everything is imported, just go to the first photo and basically make it look however you want. So I'm just going to do that. Now that I have that done, all you have to do is select all of the photos along the bottom, which I can do by hitting Ctrl A. Alternatively, you can click the first photo, scroll to the end, hold Shift, and click the last photo. Either way, just select all of them. Next, you hit this little sync button. That brings up all these options. Select whatever options you want. I want all of them to be carried over because I want all the photos to be exactly the same. So I hit synchronize, takes a little second, boom. Now all of the photos have the effect applied. After this, all of the photos should be selected. Hit File, Export, choose a folder. I would say to use JPEG. I never like using JPEG, but it means that your computer won't crash. After you're all set, hit export. This can take a while. While this is exporting, I'm gonna make myself coffee. Alright, so now that is absolutely done rendering, what you wanna do is X out of Lightroom because you just don't need that anymore. Open up Premiere again, right click, hit import. Go to whatever folder you rendered your stuff to. In my case, it's JPEG. Now this is basically the only setting you have to change. You click the first photo, go down to here where it says image sequence. I think on Mac it's under a hidden menu. You just have to click a little down arrow and then it will reveal itself. Click image sequence and hit open. That's it. You now have a full advanced time lapse. Now, usually in here, you'll have to change the scale because photos are a lot bigger than videos. You want to zoom it in a little bit. And that's the last time lapse. And that concludes the video. I hope you enjoyed. I hope you learned something. And if you are a beginner and you've looked at the advanced time lapse, I hope it sheds some light on it and makes it seem a little bit easier. Trust me, I do these with my eyes closed now. They do get much, much simpler as you just keep doing them. You just have to go up through the levels. So, thank you for watching. I'll see you guys next week, and Slán go fáil.